Hello and welcome to Peggy's Plants, coming to you from the Florida Keys with a plant mail update. Recently, a viewer asked me if I could do a review of plants that I had ordered online. And yeah, sometimes when you order plants, you don't get what you see online, and sometimes they don't hold up. So I figured that was a pretty good request. So let's get started. First off is this plant that I purchased from the plant haul. It's a Scindapsus trubii. I had been wanting one for quite some time, and I finally found one online. I had ordered them a couple of times, not received them, and I got this one from the plant haul, a rooted plant. I was very excited about it. I was a little disappointed by the size when I got it, and so of course I checked the roots as I always do. So I squeezed the pot and the plant just came right up out of the soil. And as you can see here, it didn't have much in terms of roots. So a little disappointed, but I was able to root the plant, potted it up, and this is what it looks like today. Now this is two separate Scindapsus trubii that I ordered from two different places. The one with the little hole in it, those four leaves over there are the ones that I received from the plant haul, and the other one is another plant that I had ordered from elsewhere, and I decided to put them in here in the pot together. But as you can see, the plant is doing well. It took a little time, but it grew roots, and it's a nice healthy plant, a good looking plant. So happy ending. Yes, plant mail isn't always a happy ending, but I do have to admit that most times I have had great success with ordering plants through mail. Moving on to our next plant that comes from an Etsy seller with the shop name of The Node. I made several purchases from the shop, and this is my string of hearts. It got me on a string of hearts kick. I love this plant. The hardest thing about this plant is untangling it. Other than that, no worries. This is what it looked like when I received it. As you can see, it looks nice and healthy. It had some trailing going already. It was a nice, healthy plant. No complaints at all about the way it arrived. The nice thing about this plant is I didn't have any dieback or anything from its journey to my home. And this is what it looks like today. As you can see, it is quite long. It's got some places some spots that are kind of sparse, and that's where it doesn't get as much light. The more light you get in the area, the closer the leaves are together. So clearly there's spots that aren't getting as much light, but a beautiful plant, easy to care for plant. The only string of anything I can keep alive. I love this plant. I have propagated this plant several times. I've taken cuttings off of this plant, done all kinds of things. And as you can see, it's still hanging in there. Looks absolutely beautiful, carefree plant. So another great success with ordering on the internet. This is another string of hearts that I purchased from an online store called Almost Eden, and it's much smaller than the other one. I purchased it at the same time as the previous one. It's much smaller but nice and healthy, and this is what it looks like today. It has gotten very long, and on this one I'm intentionally letting the leaves be kind of sparse. I don't know, there's something about that look. I like it when they're nice and full and close together, but there's also something to me about having the leaves kind of spaced apart every now and then, excuse me, going down the vine. I just like that look. So this is what that one looks like today. As you can see, happy and healthy, doing well. And the award for the worst plant mail I have ever received in life, and I order a lot of plants online, was this order from Hertz. I ordered some Sansevieria that I had been really wanting, and I got this box that had the soil was soaking wet. It was everywhere. You can see the plants are diseased. There's rot all over them. There's spots all over these plants. They were in no way healthy plants. They should not have been sent out. And oh my gosh. And then I pulled the Whitney, Sansevieria Whitney out of the box. And I'm thinking, okay, at least this one's going to be okay. This plant was a hot mess as well. It had split leaves. It also had black marks. Everything in this box was sopping wet. This was a mess. And with this plant, they cut away all of the leaves in the middle. That's what I'm trying to show you here. They cut away all the center leaves, probably because they had black spots on them and had problems, and they knew it, but these plants were still sent to me. You have to go see that unboxing if you didn't see it. It was, even just going back and looking at it to do this video, it kind of floored me. But yeah, worst plant mail ever. I have been fighting and fighting to keep these plants alive. I have cut them back to nothing. I mean, a pot full of nubs. I did everything, treated them, all of that. This is what they look like today. They are at my other house in Central Florida, and I keep them outside on the patio because to this day, like 8 months later, I still am not comfortable having these plants around my other plants. And it's not just paranoia. Every now and then here comes a black spot. As you can see, these other spots on it. The plants just don't seem as healthy. The Bintail sensation seems like it's reverting or something. I don't know. But I have really put in some work on these plants. And to this day, I still feel like these plants are a fail, and I need to go somewhere and find a nice, beautiful Bintail sensation in Whitney and order them. I am just, Anyway, had a lot of requests about what these plants look like to date. This is what they look like today, and they still stress me out. You can probably tell. I'm still not thrilled with these plants, still very disappointed. So let's move on. 6 months ago, I purchased this Philodendron brantianum from a seller on the platform called Mercari. As you can see, it's not a very big plant. Was looking pretty good, just a couple of leaves. I went on and planted it up. This is what it looked like, and it didn't grow forever. And once I got my grow tent, I put it in there, and just within the last, I would say 3 weeks or so, I have all of this new growth. New leaves are constantly unfurling. This plant is finally doing something for me, and I'm thrilled about it. I think it's such a beautiful plant. Things didn't start off too well with it for sure, but it is growing now. It's thriving. So as you can see there, it's giving me all kinds of new growth. Now, international plant mail is a whole new ball game. There's just so many things involved in ordering overseas. These plants are from Greenspaces ID. They were in the mail for a very long time. They got hung up in customs, but this is the Mammy Eye. It looks pretty good. One thing about international plants, this is the Gloriosum. As you can see, a yellow leaf. They're seldom going to stay the way they look when you open that box. Like, these look really good, and they're some of the best looking plants I've ever received internationally. But they look like this today, tomorrow, the next day. You just have to wait and see what you're going to get. This is my Melanochrysum that was also in that same order. And as you can see, everything just looks absolutely fabulous. It's not unusual, though, to have a lot of leaf drop. Sometimes the plant may die totally, and it looked great when you open the box. You just really can't tell, because just acclimating to the different climates, they've been dipped in chemicals, they've been in a dark box for an extended period of time. So this is what these plants are looking like today. This is my Melanochrysum. I've taken cuttings from this plant a couple of times for trade, and I also took a cutting recently from the top as a backup cutting in case I have some problems with this plant. I don't want to risk losing it all. So I like to do backup cuttings of some of my favorite plants, and this is absolutely beautiful. I think this has like 2 of the original leaves, and the rest of these are all new growth. It took a little bit of time for this plant to adjust. You have to also realize they've been through different climates to get here. And international plants, it's just, yeah, don't expect it to be like something you receive from the States. I mean, some, of course, you know, outcomes vary, but it should, some leaf drop, etc. should be expected. And this is the gloriosum that was in this order. It dropped, it for the longest, I ended up with 2 leaves. It's like every time a new leaf would unfurl, the old one would die. So it was 2 leaves forever. And then recently it just decided to start giving me a lot of new growth. There's another leaf that's ready to unfurl. One issue I am having with this plant, however, is for some reason the leaves always get hung up when they are trying to unfurl, and it's causing the leaves to be a little deformed. Hopefully it will work all of that issue out and just continue to grow, thrive, and be a big, beautiful plant. So I'm very pleased with my gloriosum as well. And I think I mentioned that these are all from Greenspaces ID. And the last plant in that order is this mammei, which is another plant that 2 leaves for the longest. Now I'm down to 1, and this little nub that started growing and then just kind of stopped. It's all green, but it's doing nothing. This is a new leaf that unfurled, I guess a couple of months ago. And it just really, this plant hasn't been doing much of anything for me. So hopefully eventually it will decide that it loves me. It will grow and thrive and be beautiful. But for right now, I have 1 leaf and a nub. I have no idea what's going on with this plant, but it's still a beautiful plant. Next up is my Hoya retusa from the plant farm. Now I purchased this as a starter plug, and it's a good size starter plug. And this is what it looks like today. This plant is, I've had this plant for 5 months, and this is how much it has grown. It is absolutely beautiful. I was surprised at how quickly it grew. I thought it was a more slow growing plant, but I love this plant. Absolutely love it. And it was one of my first experiences with starter plugs, which I love starter plugs. If you're not, all in on a plant, or a plant's hard to find and you don't want to spend the money for the big one because you're kind of on the fence about it, starter plug all the way. I'm convinced. So that's what it looks like today. And it was also the first Hoya I've ever had to bloom. And this is the unboxing from Plantarina. It was my Hoya linearis. And this was the first time Plantarina had offered the Hoya linearis for sale. And I was able to get the small one in a nursery pot for $27.50, which was a great deal. Now I just wish that I had gone on and purchased the large one, but I didn't want to do that because I wasn't sure if I would be able to keep it alive. So I didn't want to go all in for a lot of money or anything like that. But it was a good looking plant, as you can see here. 8 months later, this is what it looks like today. It's doing well. We did have a few growing pains, but nothing major. I have repotted this plant 3 times just to get it in a position where it was happy, it had room to grow, and I could find a place for it to be that it liked, okay? The right amount of sun and light and all of that stuff. But she's happy, doing well, thriving. I've taken a couple of cuttings from this plant. I did a nice backup cutting. Well, it was actually several cuttings that I used, and I just put them in some water, rooted them, put them in a pot as a backup plant in case things went wrong with my Hoya linearis. As I mentioned before, any of my favorite plants or plants that I pay a lot of money for, I really like to try and have a backup plant. So there she is. It's so beautiful. And this is my backup Linares that I have from cuttings from the plant. And it's doing well also. I just recently took it out of the grow tent and it's happy. So it looks like I may have two Linares in my future. Next is also from Plant Arena, and it was also a first offering, and it was the Hoya kentiana variegata. Beautiful plant. Got it from Plant Arena. It was very reasonably priced. I'm kind of noticing with Plant Arena, when they first start offering something, the price is usually the lowest you're going to find it on that website. So if they have something I want and they are offering it, I will jump on it because otherwise they can be a little pricey. I had some issues with this plant. For some reason, sections started dying off, but everything seems to be okay now. This is what she's looking like. I ended up repotting her, putting in some different soil. She's under a grow light and is doing fine. I also did backup cutting from this plant because honestly, I really thought that I was going to lose the whole thing. Just sections started dying off for no reason. And here's the backup cutting. It's in the grow tent, so it's giving me all the colors, the reds, the pink. It's absolutely beautiful. And once I'm sure the other plant is out of the woods, I'll probably just go ahead and add this cutting back into, back with the mother plant so that I can have a nice full Hoya kentiana variegata. Absolutely beautiful. But as far as shipping and care for this plant, anything, getting a healthy plant, nice healthy plant, it was fine for months before it started having issues. So that was definitely nothing I would attribute to the seller. And the last plant we're going to talk about today was an international order, and I do everything I'm supposed to with these orders. I'm talking Fido, certificate, everything. It's my Monstera Albo variegata from Asian Plant Exports, and not real thrilled about that. This company I've purchased from before, and it's kind of iffy always with them. And this one, they put it in this tiny box, folded up the leaves, creased them and everything. And, you know, what can you do? Some of the leaves, of course, died off. You can tell that some of them aren't doing well, even from the unboxing. These got hung up in customs a long time. They were in the mail a very long time. I've had this plant for 3 months now, and it's doing okay, but it has lost, I've either cut off or it has lost all of the original leaves except one. And it did do some browning in the creases and all of that stuff. But I feel like I'm out of the woods with this plant now, and here's what it looks like today. Now this leaf with the fenestrations, this is one of the original leaves. It's doing well. It has some of the browning on the white part, which isn't unusual for these plants, but it hasn't spread any. So was kind of concerned about the kind of variegation I was going to get, since the stems have more white than green by far. And so far, some decent variegation. I could do with a little less white just to make sure the plant stays, you know, kind of stable and stuff like that. But 2 new leaves and 1 original leaf. The plant is beautiful. It's doing well. It seems happy, being as it's putting out new leaves. So that's about it for the plant mail update. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care. Stay well. Bye-bye.